Okay, we'll come to order. Welcome, everyone. I'll just identify that Yvonne Jones, the Parliamentary Secretary to Indigenous and Northern Affairs Canada, is with us today, as is Hunter Tutu, the member from Nunavut. Welcome to you both. And Joelle Lightbound is sitting in today for Remy Massé. And Alistair McGregor is sitting in for Charlie Angus. So we've got some different faces around the table today. Welcome to you all. I'll begin by acknowledging that we're meeting today on traditional Algonquin territory, and we're very thankful for that, as we are every meeting. And we're welcoming today, we've got two panels today. In the first hour, we're welcoming Leave Out Violence Nova Scotia and three representatives of that organization. I'd like to introduce you to Sarah McLaren, the Executive Director, Sharenda Michael, a youth leader with Love, and Richard Taylor, Operations Manager. And I'll just review the rules. So we're happy to have you speak for 10 minutes, up to 10 minutes. And when we get to about 9 minutes, I'm just going to show a yellow card. That means we're nearing the end. And then the red card means please try to get to your point as quickly as possible, and we'll get to the questions. I'll use the same cards for the questions from committee members, which are also timed. Okay, so with that, I'm happy to give you the floor to share the 10 minutes amongst yourselves for 10 minutes as you see fit.
Hello, my name is Sharenda Michael. I'm from Shubenacadie. I'm a third-year university student at St. Mary's. This is important to me today because at 12 years old, I told my family I wanted to kill myself, and my mom reacted, "I'll kill you before you kill yourself," and that was a reaction of her part. So later that day, my grandfather came home, who was an RCMP at the time, and they said, "You have to break it to him." I said, "Okay." So I broke it to him. I said, "Me, Dad, I want to kill myself," and he said, "What's your plan?" And I said, I was 12 at the time, and I said, "I don't have a plan, I just feel pain." He said, "When, why?" And he asked me all the questions and communicated with me, which was important for myself to realize that not just myself went through this. It wasn't only me that was going through this. He said, rough day on a job, family arguments and stuff, he thought the same. So it kind of astonished me, and I couldn't believe that someone who was so respectable in my eyes and so strong was broken too. It wasn't just me. So another thing is why this is so close to me is my mom lost her best friend when she was 22 years old. She just had me, to suicide. And she didn't know that 19 years later I would go through the same thing and lose a friend. But she always asked herself why, what could she have done? She always beated herself up about it. And it's an intergenerational thing in these communities. It's not just one generation. It's not just my generation. This was 20 years ago when she lost her best friend. Then I lost a close friend of mine to this. So the thing that I find is important is leaving that stigma at the door, because the stigma of, oh, you're just having a bad day, not a bad life situation, they don't let you explain, and there's a lot of, well, you're the problem of it all, and you want to break everyone else down, when really you don't. You just want help. You want to be able to tell people, because when my mom told me that she was going to kill me before I killed myself, I felt like a bigger mistake. And my father wasn't in my life, so my mom called my father before my grandfather stepped up, and I asked him, I said, "Why weren't you there for me?" And he said, "I don't know." He didn't have an answer for me. And 12 years old, that made me feel like I was a mistake to my father. And that hurt me even more. But when my grandfather hugged me and told me it's okay, I felt this way too, and he communicated with me, it made me feel like, okay, it's not only me going through this. So opening that door and being able to communicate that you aren't the only one going through this made me be able to. I know I go through it every now and then because I'm in university, and I let my anxiety and depression eat me every now and then to this day, but there's different ways that I can reach out now. I have the support of the Love program and different supports now, and that's what I have to say for me.
Thank you so much, Sharenda. There's lots of time remaining, Sarah or Rich, if you'd like to.
Thank you, Sharenda. I was told that if you commit suicide, you go to hell. I was told that if you commit suicide, you can go into limbo. I was told this by the Catholic school that I went to, which is Lester B. Pearson Catholic High School in Jasmine Crescent, here in Ottawa. At home, my mother was very fearful that I, my family members, my brothers and sisters, she, her husband, would someday somehow end up in hell. She was taught that from her mother. She was taught that from the Indian Day boarding school. Fear was the mechanism to teach. So the moment that I got out of line, it was fear. The moment that my brothers and sisters got out of line, it was fear. My mother loves me. My mother loves my brothers and sisters. She loves her grandchildren. And she lives now with regret. The effects of Indian residential school, and to a greater extent an overall Eurocentric societal model, transcends much of what we deal with today, because it's been going on for 500 years. I work with kids now, and I've been working with them for many years. I see all the symptoms. I see those that are fragmented. I see those that have incarceration issues, those that may have lost family members to violent ends, including suicide. And it is my hope that through the sharing and telling of their stories, as per their terms, and gently over time, that they in effect are healing by virtue of unpacking the traumatic experiences that they have undergone. I hope that this committee will consider that in their processes. The healing is in the story. The story is in the individual. Collateral healing can happen at a community level. Will Allen, thank you.
Thank you.
Hi. I'm the least credible voice amongst my people here. The only reason I get to sit here today is because people have been kind enough and generous enough to teach me. So I just want to acknowledge my teachers. I'll make 3 really quick points. You can ask me about them when my minutes are up. 1, for those of us who are members of the dominant class, the white privileged class, if we want to do this work with any integrity, we must humble ourselves. We are used to dominating spaces, the economy, language, conversations. We are used to it. We will not be effective if we walk into spaces with that attitude. It requires humility, and to build a partnership with trust, we have to humble ourselves and become listeners and learners. Two, I just want to speak to politics. This issue is too important. I'm sorry, I'm so distracted by your side chit chat. I don't mean to be rude, I just can't handle it. But this, whatever is decided by this committee, cannot fall victim to party politics. It is more important than one party's term in office. It is more important that whoever comes next, if Ottawa can't agree across party lines, then you're in trouble, because the solution is going to take so much time and commitment and persistence that you really have to, everyone agree on what you're going to do. It's more important than what party you support or belong to. People are dying. And then the third point I want to make is just quickly as funders, I think at the end of the day, there will be a decision on how you spend your money to address this problem, and you need to do something radically different than what has been done. It is time to get some creative brains in the process of how you're going to spend your money. We get so caught up in the bureaucracy that the money goes to anyone who runs a not-for-profit knows the money goes to the best grant writer. The money goes to the person who knows how to do it best. Not always, it doesn't always penetrate into the community. The solution to this problem is in relationships. It is deeply human. A bureaucratic approach is not going to be successful. You need the money to get to the elder who's feeding 5 children because they're hungry. You need the money to get to the guy who's running a sweat so he can buy wood to run his sweat. You need the money to penetrate into community, and that needs a creative approach to how you fund. That's all I have to say. Thank you for hearing me.
Thanks very much, each of you, for your testimony. We will move right into rounds of questions from the members. And the way that works is that there are going to be 4 questions from members that are 7 minutes each. And then when we get through those, we'll move to some shorter questions, 5 minutes each. So the first question today is coming from Michael McLeod, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to the presenters. I apologize for being a little bit late. We just returned from visiting a number of communities in the north. Kuujjuaq was one of them, and Iqaluit. I'm from the Northwest Territories, and we've been discussing the crisis that is going on in our communities with suicide. And we figure, by rough numbers, that in the Yukon, Nunavut, Northwest Territories, Nunavut, and Labrador, where there's well over 1,000 people in the last 15 years that have committed suicide. And when we talk about solutions, they raise the issue of housing, overcrowding, as being a huge issue. And I think it was stated by a number of the organizations that presented to us that it would probably solve 50% of the problems if we could deal with the housing issue. And it was also stated that we need to fix the people that went through the residential schools. The children are saying, fix our parents. And the economy, of course, is something else that is really lacking. A healthy economy that's providing jobs, employment, and training is just non-existent in those areas. I'm not familiar with your part of the country. So I wanted to ask, what are the factors and circumstances that you can attribute to the fact that the youth are experiencing a sense of despair or mental health problems? You know, is it depression? Is it suicide? Anxiety? Maybe you just talk a little bit on that?
Okay, I'll take that one. Ours are pretty much the same as the north. There's a community in Cape Breton right now where their water's brown because their water tank isn't fixed. So people aren't able to cook in their water. shower in their water. There's housing. Housing just with me personally, like this is my personal aspect. We had 3 generations in one house before. We had about 17 people in my house, in a 2-bedroom house with a basement. And this is when I was about 12, so this is about the time when I was ready to end my life. And it's a lot of jobs too, because I know in Eskasoni, they're about an hour away from town. You don't have a vehicle or a license. How are you supposed to have a job if you can't get to the job? It's the same as, like, how are you supposed to do this when you're isolated? How are you supposed to talk to people when your elders are going through residential schools and then they don't know how to talk about things? Because I know my grandfather used to tell me my father never talked about things, and he went through the residential school. And then somehow my grandfather went through programs and stuff. And I know when he was growing up with my mom, my mom said, "You saw the different man than I did. You saw the healed man in front of us today. I got the broken man." So she had a lot of resentment to her dad being a father to me instead of the father he was to her. So it's a lot of that too. It's the same down there. It's just, we're not, like, we are about, my community, we're about 20 minutes from Truro and an hour from Halifax, but still can't get anywhere because we're put in these spots where you feel isolated. Our community won't even make like an exit right off. It takes 20 minutes to get onto the highway from my community when there could have been one right at the overpass to only take 5. So.
Mr. Chairman, I want to say thank you for that response. And it's interesting that how we're spread all over the country as Aboriginal people, but we got so many same challenges. The communities in my riding are next door to diamond mines, yet most people can't find a way to get to work. It's 3 hours away. And it's only women that can get to work because all the men can't pass they can't get their criminal records checked. They all have criminal records from when they're young, and they can't get them dealt with. It takes 10 years to deal with a criminal record to get a pardon. Some of the things we heard in the communities, Kuujjuaq and Iqaluit, was the need for crisis centers, family centers, and cultural centers. And I keep thinking about that recommendation, but I also look at what we have already that we have in all parts of Canada. Not so much in Nunavut, I think there's only one, but is the Friendship Center program. Is there such a facility or program in your community that can deliver programs if it was well-resourced to deal with the issue of all fronts, sports, culture, language, the issue of mental health, all these things?
Within the city of Halifax, there is the Mi'kmaq Friendship Center, which runs an array of programs for the Aboriginal population that is in Halifax. Within the community of Sipekne'katik, where Love operates our programs, we have a youth coordinator who does a number of various activities for the youth in the community. And there is consistency there. This is a position that has only recently been created, and it has been quite successful. So this individual, she takes care of much of she accesses the gym and has a number of events happening at the gym. Our largest complaint is from our youth is that there aren't things happening on the weekends, and that it's on the weekends when the most terrible things happen, which includes which is left to their own. When kids are left to their own means, they often find themselves doing things like partying and drinking and so on and so forth. So there you have it. It's one component of a larger picture. And if I could just touch on the previous question, if we have a child that has suffered traumatic experience from the time it's born, say if it's suffered from fetal alcohol syndrome, from the moment that child is born, they will contend with issues for their entire life. And if they have to deal with that issue from the moment that they're born, that they had no choice in, then they also have a family member who might have died, or who might have committed suicide, who might be in prison, who might have gone missing, and their father's drinking and their mother's been drinking, and they live in a house where there's a bunch of kids and families that are all dealing with the same thing, and they're all self-medicating. Of course there's going to be issues. Of course there's going to be problems. And until the trauma is looked at and taken into account, we can really not begin to move forward. I dealt with the trauma in my life by seeking it out in the sweat and by doing it in the Sundance. That's not for everybody, though. So part of the solution has to be looking and admitting that that trauma is very real, and that the larger society has a role in addressing it. Thank you.
Thanks so much. The next question is from Arnold Viersen, please.
Mr. Chair, and thank you to our guests for being here today. We're hearing repeated things from most of our witnesses, and the ITK's put together a nice template, perhaps, of how to proceed. They have the protective factors and the risk factors, and so we seem to have a fairly clear idea of what is causing this. Two of the things that really jump out for me is cultural continuity and family strength is two of the areas that they've outlined as protective factors. So if your family's intact, if your family's all in a loving relationship with one another, you're much less likely to be involved in suicide or other risky behaviors. So I was just wondering, we seem to have identified the issues. There's a whole host of organizations across the country that are working towards this. Just from your vantage point, I imagine that suicide prevention is just one of the aspects that you deal with. And none of these things happen in a vacuum, right? Economy, family, education, they're all parts of the solution. So I was just wondering if you could just elaborate a bit about what your organization's doing to promote strong family ties, to promote cultural continuity, and to promote, say, like local economy in terms of food production.
Thank you for the question. I think when we start, and Rich will probably speak to this better than I will in some ways, but I think it's not just what you do, it's who does it. So equipping people with the skills to do things that need to be done. So what we do at Love is basically whatever our kids need from us. So yes, we have a weekly program where we bring food, we engage in conversation. We engage in conversation that, for the most part, other people are not engaging in those conversations with our kids. We talk about things, I think, that our kids will say to us, oh, nobody's ever talked to me about that before. Nobody's ever talked to me about my strengths. Nobody ever told me I was worthy. Nobody ever said those things to me. So we create a circle of support amongst a peer group where they drive it. And then now Rich goes for 2 days a week, and it's basically he responds to what our kids need. This one needs to apply to community college. We know they're not going to do it on their own. This one needs to go to the doctor and get a prescription for whatever. This one needs, but what we've found really works is essentially not having a cookie cutter response to anything. Mm-hmm. Is basically asking individual people what they need and then providing them with the support to get that. Mm-hmm. Because humans are different.
Yeah, and that's entirely the case. What I'm more going after is so everything that you've outlined to me up till now seems to be we're dealing with crisis. Do you have maybe a longer term goal in like renewing the culture or renewing family ties, essentially? I know that each individual family deals with a lot of these things in broader Canadian culture.
I just want to, sorry, I'm interrupting.
Yeah, go ahead. This is a discussion. So.
But we're not just dealing with crisis.
Okay.
What we're doing is preparing young people to maybe one day sit at a table like this, if that's what they want. So that's not crisis. That's skill building, that's confidence building, that's relationship building, so that they have, like, you handed a card over. Who knows what that may mean to Sharinda one day? You never know. It's those connections and exposures that, again, because of isolation, our youth don't have. And on the cultural piece, obviously, that is not for me to speak to. So that would be more to Rich.
As an example, I believe that Sharinda is here with us as a young person from our community, and as Sarah's describing, it's a big deal to her. And I don't mean to embarrass you, but Hunter is somebody that she looks up to very, very much. So here she is in a situation where this can happen, and it might otherwise not happen. Where we focus our efforts is on trust. Whatever activity or event that is happening is secondary to trust, which simply means that we might be doing an exercise we call an F write, where you write whatever you want. F standing for what you think it stands for.
Because kids like that word.
And it's not about the exercise of writing it down. It's about, it's okay for you to write whatever you want. If you've got to go to the doctor, it's okay for you to tell me that you have to go to the doctor. And I'm going to keep your secrets. We tell our kids there's only 3 secrets that we can't keep. That is that you're going to hurt yourself, that you're going to hurt somebody else, or that someone is hurting you. And those are the only times that we will break confidence. And our kids are very savvy, because they will tell us things without revealing that it is they themselves that are experiencing it. So our main focus is trust. I bring kids into a sweat lodge for the very first time. For some of them, they're scared. For some of them, they're afraid because it's not Catholic. Our own community members are resistant to the idea of traditionalism. In the Atlantic, the Catholicism is so strong that it was there and it stayed, and we've been living with it for the longest. As such, our own community members will often resist the old traditional ways, and that will ingrain into the children. I take that and I tell them it's okay, you don't have to go in. You can just come to eat, because there can't be any more pressure. They don't need any more pressure. They've got enough. They walk with it every day. It's normalized to them. Just because it's normal doesn't mean it's okay. Build trust.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Next question from Alistair McGregor, please.
Richard, Sharinda, I want to thank you so much for coming to the committee today, for displaying what I think is a very high level of courage to let this committee know of what was a very painful moment in both your lives. So thank you for that. I think this committee needs to hear more stories like that, and indeed this whole country. And Sarah, I really appreciated your words on being humble. My riding sits on the traditional territories of the Cowichan people, also the Malahat, the Lake Cowichan, and the Songhees and the Esquimalt First Nations, part of the Coast Salish network on Vancouver Island. And I participated in a few events. One of them was called Understanding the Village, where they walked non-Indigenous population through the process of colonization. And at the beginning of that, it forced us to be humble, to accept what we were about to experience. I wanted to talk a little bit about the national. There have been some witnesses that have come to this committee and spoken about a national strategy on suicide, and I know that national strategies may not always work for all the many different regions of Canada, but I wanted to hear a little bit more from the three of you, your thoughts on some of the potential advantages and maybe disadvantages of implementing a national suicide prevention strategy.
I mean, we know them. This room probably knows them better than most. The disadvantages are our country's different. Where you live isn't the same as where I live. Our communities need to feel like, I'll just speak really bluntly, that like the government isn't taking a cookie cutter approach to their individual communities. So I think the potential disadvantage is that you walk down a path and it's the wrong one and nothing gets solved, and you further isolate already isolated and disenfranchised communities, and you also let some of the dominant, ignorant members of the public go, well, we threw another 500 million at it and it wasn't solved. So what are we going to try now? You know, that's the danger, is that you cannot do something customized on a national level. And I would say that is your biggest challenge. How do you roll out a national project that is allowed to be individual, that communities can own?
And I believe I agree with Sarah in the sense that while in Michael's community and in Eskasoni and in Sabaganagadi, from where Sharenda and I are from, while we experience the same sorts of trauma and the communities are responding in the same ways, the solution is not necessarily going to be the same. Perhaps in Michael's community, they still speak their language. Perhaps in my community, many people are still traditional. In the Mohawk communities, they still are very tied to their old and traditional ways. In Sabaganagadi and in Mi'kmaq, it is not like that. We are regularly attempting to return to our old ways. So determining which factors are causing the greatest amount of trauma would be difficult when trying to employ a national scale solution. This is not to say that the national scale is not a possibility, because as we see with the government and with the various tribes here in Canada, what we have is in some cases it applies to one tribe, and in other cases it does not apply. In Nova Scotia, we have a certain gas tax. And in New Brunswick, that gas tax is not there, yet both nations, both tribes are the same. We are Mi'kmaq. So the government has perhaps inadvertently, hopefully inadvertently, although the pattern would suggest otherwise, caused dissension among the tribes themselves by offering certain things to one and offering other things to others and taking away things from some, and so on and so forth. A national scale solution can only be applied after all of the necessary rocks have been turned over at the local level to finally be able to define what it is that can help and can work. Perhaps a range or scale of possibilities within a national program. But the people themselves, Aboriginal people, must be dealt with when with the government. I firmly believe, and this is strictly my own belief, that we should be indeed viewed as one. Because if we're not viewed as one, that's when we get into problems where one tribe is given something and not to another.
Thank you for that, Richard. And it goes back to, you had said in your testimony, like what works for you may not work for everyone, and it's sort of balancing like this collective action with individual needs. In the short time that you have, can you just talk a little bit about some of the best practices that Love has employed? I mean, I know a lot of it's built on trust, but can you just, in the last little bit, expand a little bit on some of the best practices?
Please.
I'm going to dare to be flaky. Our best practice is to be human. Our best practice is to not be constrained by many of the constraints that other people who work with youth are. We hug our kids. We tell our kids we love them. We are on call to our kids 24/7. We do not operate. We go to conferences with other youth service providers, and they look at us like we are chickens with our heads cut off, because we don't operate in a climate of fear. We don't operate. We work with some very high-risk kids, and we engage in behavior that many people who work with young people would consider high risk. But we believe that's the way you need to work to get the job done. So I think that's our best practice, is to be human.
Thank you.
Sorry, it's not very helpful probably, but that's
fine.
what we do.
That's fine. Thank you for that.
Thanks. Next question is from Gary and Ananda Sangri, please.
Thank you, all three of you, for joining us this afternoon. I worked quite extensively with youth prior to my entry into politics, so I want to kind of probe a few things with you, and I completely agree with you that when you serve youth, you really can't have barriers, and oftentimes a lot of the challenges is that you have a ending point and then there's no one else to take over. So you almost have to have a holistic look at somebody's life in order to serve them properly. But with respect to the criminal justice system, I'd like to know the type of work that you do and what you think is working with the youth that you're working with. And what are some of the challenges? What are some of the structural challenges that exist in the criminal justice system for Indigenous people? Because the numbers are just astounding with respect to incarceration of adults. And it does oftentimes starts with youth. So if you can maybe give us a very brief overview of what you think works right now.
May clarify again, please, the question? With regard to the criminal justice system and what are our experiences with it?
Yeah, the programs that you work, what works? What's something that works in your community that could potentially be used in other communities?
I could take that one for a minute.
Sure, go ahead.
Not giving up on people. I'll tell you right now, look at Sarah. When I started with Sarah and I got mad, I used to walk away and think she's never going to see me again. Next week I'd come, she'd hug me again. I've been in programs in my own community where I've been bullied and they gave up on me. And I thought, okay, this person isn't my own. She's not a relative of mine. She's going to give up on me. It's 8-9 years now. Just not giving up on people.
Again, people don't like our answers. We're familiar because people want to be able to go, but again, how do I write that down? How do I roll out a national strategy around caring for young people? Time limits are doing a great disservice to our young people. Programs that run short-term projects, let them go. If you want to address long-term systemic programs, stop running 6-month theater projects in communities that let the theater runner make 20 grand and the community have a play and nothing else. Run long-term programs. If you want to know one thing that's working for lowering recidivism, that's one thing that's working. Another thing that's working, I think, is that, again, we allow our youth to make their mistakes and come back. We go to court with our youth. I sometimes call myself, our criminal justice system is racist. I'm sorry, I hate to use the word here today, but it is. I'm the white shield. I put my little blazer on, and I'm like, look, I am with this kid. And it makes a difference. We hate to think it makes a difference, but it makes a difference.
So Sarah, maybe just probe on that. So the factors that are used towards release with respect to mitigation in cases, do you believe that those are problematic when it's applied to specific communities?
Factors in terms of giving someone back their freedom?
Yes.
Um,
In terms of sentencing, in terms of
I think
a
that
whole host
when we
of,
work with young people here, that one of the biggest problems I encounter is breaching of conditions. So a kid commits under the Young Offenders Act, they breach, but they've turned 18 in the meantime. Now they got an adult charge for a breach on what was originally a young adult charge, and as your esteemed colleague mentioned, now they got no job because they're 18 and they have a criminal charge, but it wasn't even really a big offense. It was just they missed curfew or they didn't have their phone on when they were supposed to. And when it comes to release, I think the biggest challenge is for anyone is what are systems in place to support, to heal, to care about that person's reentry. I have picked up young people from incarcerated situations, and what they had was a bus ticket. Good luck.
Thank you. You had mentioned earlier at some point that your grandfather was healed from the time that your mom grew up to the time that you were growing up. What does that mean in real
How he
terms?
healed?
And what helped him heal?
What happened with him was before I was born, and he admitted this to me growing up. He said I was a bad alcoholic because of my father couldn't communicate with me. I was a bad alcoholic. I would chase alcohol all over the community. He told me this. And when my mother was growing up, that's what he was. He was the father who was the alcoholic. So my grand told him straight up, was like, you have to either get sober or me and my kids are gone. He chose his family over alcohol. It was tough, but he did it. When he died, he was 30 years sober. That's a big thing, is people don't realize is with us, we weren't always we didn't always have alcohol. It was brought over to us. And there's a lot of alcoholism in the communities. And a lot of people won't admit to their problems. But he did. And then he started communicating as he got older.
All right, we're finished there.
Okay.
Thank you for the question and for the response. We're going to move into the 5-minute questions, so these ones move a little more quickly, and we can fit more of them in now, so that's the good thing. The first 5-minute question is from David Urdiga, please.
Well, thank you, Chair. Richard, Surenda, and Sarah, thank you for joining us today. Your input is very valuable to our committee, and you know what? We want to make things better through programming, and we heard a lot about programming. But one of the things, what has been the most successful program in your organization to date? I know they're all important, but what's the one that made the biggest impact to the youth?
We pretty much run one model anywhere we go. So our program operates on the same premises. But I would say we run 2 in-school programs. I think our most successful program are programs that are not associated with another institution. So we can play by our own rules, and that the kids come to. All of our programs are voluntary, and I think basically our philosophy and our model, we don't really run, like we used to run a federal employability program, but that one got the chop. But other than that, we run the same thing everywhere we go. We just adapt it to, okay, you're junior high school boys. What's it important for us to talk about with them? Oh, Rich, we're coming to Spaghetti. How do we need to change our program? What we talk about in our circle, but our model and our philosophy, frankly, that's what matters. So, does that, because you've experienced both.
I started from grade 7, the junior high level. Then I went to the high school, went to the leadership of Shubenacadie, and then I moved to Halifax for university, and it's pretty much the same aroma. Like, I've had people, one of my bullies when I was like 10, when I was 15 in LUP program, he apologized to me without any of us asking him. He just straight up was like, I'm sorry I hurt you when you were younger. And I was like, oh, okay, thanks. Like, it meant a lot, but it's the same, like, I roam around the different programs because I've gone from Sebenacadie. Now I'm in the leadership program in Halifax.
And I think that the philosophy is trust. Because as human beings, when we're born, we intrinsically trust the body from which we've come, the body from which we're born. We inherently trust that, intrinsically. And once that trust is violated, that's when we run into problems. And for many of our youth, regardless of whether they're in Halifax or they're in HRM or they're in Cape Breton, which is in 4 hours away, or they're in Sebenacadie, trust is the one thing that sort of ties all of them together. They've all got trust issues. Each of them have had their trust violated, and that is no small thing. A violation of trust is very traumatic.
Well, thank you. And another thing we heard from a number of witnesses that for these grants that each community have to apply for, a lot of times it takes so long to go through the grant process. Then you have such a narrow window to spend the money. So has this been a major challenge for your organization, receiving these grants and trying to spend it?
To be honest, I don't even apply for federal money anymore. To be completely frank, it's too limiting. It doesn't allow us to work in the way that we know is effective. Rich and I had the conversation. I was like, don't worry if we offend them, because we don't get any of their money now, and we may never. It's okay, buddy. So it really is, if you want to create long-term solutions, and I really don't mean to offend anyone, this is just the reality we're operating in. One-year grant that it takes you 8 months to find out if you're going to get it, and then you got 1 year and it's all, your year ends March 31st. So, and then you want me to waste money? That's not our culture. We are penny pinchers. We are fiscally so responsible. And then your program officer is calling and saying, well, you have to spend $6,000. I'm like, why? Why do I have to spend $6,000? We could do something next month with it. Let me keep it. I saved it because I was smart. So yeah, it's very detrimental to good work.
So much time I have left?
You're done.
Really?
Yeah, 5:09.
Well, thank you.
Thanks very much. The next question is from Joel Leitman, please.
Yes. First of all, I want to thank you all for being here. I think it takes a lot of courage to testify in front of a committee like this, and we really, really appreciate it. So I thank you for your presence here with us. My first question would be to you, Sharenda. If you could walk us through what brought you to reach out to Love in the first place, and how it's helped you concretely in your life as you entered the organization and worked with the organization. So just to have your feel as someone who's gone through it.
For myself, like I said, my father wasn't there when I was born, and my mother and I butted heads a lot. I refer to her as the wave, in and out. And she has given up a lot on me. And the reason why I wanted to find somewhere where I could trust, and when they said the three secrets, and then anything else stays in that room, I was like, okay, I'll give it a month. We'll push buttons here. We'll see. Maybe we'll speak about, like, me and my friends, right? We're like, yeah, maybe. But honestly, we sat in that room, and nothing came out of that room when it went in. Because we all realized, sitting around in a circle, we all were broken. We all needed to be fixed and needed to trust someone. Like I said, when I was 15, my biggest bully, when I was 10, apologized to me without anyone asking him to or anything. Because he realized, oh, I bullied you because I was broken. Didn't realize you were that rich kid where your grandfather was a cop, didn't realize your parents did what they did to you. Like it took time to build the relationships that I did with my fellow youth that were in love program with me, but that's what kept us, was we actually were like, oh, it's not just me causing the problem. It's not just me causing the problem at home where people are yelling at me for no reason. Well, to us it was no reason, like it probably was no reason, but it's not just me going through it, the kid down the road's going through it too, and they get everything they want. So that's the thing, the trust thing, like we're all saying, is you need to learn how to leave things at the door and leave it in the room if someone wants it left in the room.
Thank you. Then my question would be perhaps more to Richard and Sarah. I guess it happens in the course of your work that you lose a kid that walks away from the program. Then what resources would be needed to avoid that if it happens, and how can we avoid that they stay course with you? What's your impression on that?
We don't lose a lot of kids. We have retention rates in the 90th percentile. Part of that being voluntary and giving our kids choice. And we're renowned. Our kids, we're at your doorstep. Hi, are we going to see you Tuesday? It's the days of texting and Facebook. We are diligent human beings. Every now and then a kid walks away, and that's okay, because you can't be everything to all people. But if you're hitting the 90th percentile mark, I think we're doing all right in that regard. And you know what? Sometimes they just come back. And our kids opt out. Sometimes, like, we've had kids who, once they learn our values and they've been around a while, they want to be role models. They know our thing is you're supposed to role model to the other kids. And if they aren't being role models, then they will actively separate themselves from us until they're walking a different path, and then they'll come back. So it's very rare that we lose a kid. I don't know, Rich?
Our repeal, I think, is we think we say 16 to 18, but really it's like 12 to 26. There's kids that are in their 30s that still call Sarah just to say hi from Vancouver. We have one of our folks here from Vancouver. So that relation and that conversation is often simply, oh, how are things going? Oh, it's nice that things are changing. It's nice that you're doing this. It's nice that you're enrolled in something, or it's nice that you're at work, or it's nice to hear that you have a lovely child in your life and you have a wonderful family, burgeoning, all of these sorts of things. For many of these young people, things are happening late. And so I think for us, our retention is really just in having a broad appeal. And when a young person, we call it maybe like a self-eviction, like this individual sees what's going on, says, you know what, maybe I don't need this. Maybe I thought I needed it. And actually, I kind of don't. And then they sort of move on. They find themselves a job. They'll be doing drywall work or something, and they'll come by and say hi, or they'll be happy when they see us. But yeah, that's about it, you know? Broad appeal.
You're out of time, yeah. Okay. Thank you for the response. We have time for one more question, one more 5-minute question, and that is coming from Kathy McLeod, please.
Thank you, and thank you for your both very compelling testimony today and the work that you do. So I was looking at your website. It seems like this is a model.
Poor not-for-profits don't have the best websites.
You know, so first of all, you know, I appreciate your comments in terms of, you know, sometimes federal programs can be very confining and that, you know, the time you spend with applications. So I think that's a point that rather than being offended at, probably agree to some degree that there's ways that perhaps we could make them a little bit more flexible and a little bit more responsive or timely. But so I'm trying to understand, you have different branches in different communities. How did the model evolve? Has there been any, you talked about a 90% retention rate. Do you have actually sort of evaluation that have been done that are shareable. Tell me a little bit more about your organization.
So our organization was started by a woman whose husband was murdered by a 14-year-old boy in Montreal, and she started it in Montreal in 1995. She started it in partnership with a journalism professor and a photography professor. In 97, they got a grant to expand to Toronto, and in 2000, I do probably sound very ungrateful, like the government has done nice things for us. They got a Millennium Grant and expanded to Vancouver and Halifax. We had a central governance body, realized it was broken about 2 years ago. Every region is now incorporated individually, and so each region runs according to what they feel their community's needs are. So we have basic program model, you have an intake level program, you have a leadership program, and you have outreach. But it's really, because we are more philosophy based than curriculum based, it's really how does that apply to your community and how do you want it to work? Does that make sense? And the model itself evolved. They started doing journalism with kids and then realized, wow, these kids have really important stories. We need to have their stories heard. And then they took them out and then they realized, oh, maybe we need leadership training before they can go out in the world and share their stories. So now we have a leadership training model, and then we have an outreach model where our young people go out and educate youth-serving professionals or other young people about the root causes and solutions to violence.
So evaluation process?
An evaluation process, we have an evaluation conducted by McGill 5 years ago that is available. We just, in Nova Scotia, we just partnered with the Dalhousie School of Social Work, and 4 of their master's students conducted an evaluation for us last year. I've got the results here in an annual report in my purse if you want to see them. We absolutely believe in being accountable and being evaluated and making sure that we aren't just pie in the sky thinking because our kids hug us we're doing great work. We understand that's not a good measure of whether we're doing good work or not.
So you indicated that you don't apply for government grants, and I looked at your sort of sponsor list. It's a huge, vast kind of sponsorship list you have. Are you having to go through processes with every organization every year, or are you just sort of on there, we support you as an organization every year? So
what's the...
In terms of running your programs?
In terms of running our programs, we are always... Our budget in Nova Scotia, and each region raises their own budget. Our budget in Nova Scotia right now, I'm riding around the $460,000 mark. I raise that every year. That's my job.
In short, there is no multi-funders. We have maybe, I think
we have 3, United Way, Peter Cundall Foundation, and 1 other foundation that have signed on for more than 1 year. But generally, no. Funders, in my next life, I'll get to educate funders.
Okay, thank you for that, and thanks for the question. So we're out of time. It goes really quickly, but what we heard from you is extremely valuable. Sharenda, thank you so much for being with us today and sharing what you shared, your story. Richard and Sarah, thank you for coming as well and explaining to us your program and how it works. Thank you all for a whirlwind day-long trip to Ottawa. And I want to say, please do leave the annual report with us if you could. We'll table that as well. And the final thing is we've created an online portal for this study. And we're trying to spread that as far and wide as we can. Excuse me, as we can. And anyone's welcome to leave we call it a brief, but it can just, it's just what you want to say, up to about 3,000 words. And Michelle here is going to email you the link. And Sarah and Rich, if you could share that with your people, your kids, as broadly as you want to, maybe talk about it with them. There's a really nice opportunity to write. It could be an F-write. So we would welcome that. Okay? Thanks so much, and we're going to suspend for a couple of minutes. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us, and good luck.
All right. The second panel of the day is going to be two people. Matthew Glode is appearing as an individual, and Pamela Glode DeRoche is appearing representing the Mi'kmaq Native Friendship Center in Halifax. I'm happy to offer you each 10 minutes if you would like to use that. That's 10 minutes each. And then we will follow with rounds of questions after that. And I might just mention the acoustics in the room can be a little tricky at times, so the earpiece can help even if it's not being translated. It helps just to hear what's being said more clearly in the microphones. When you're speaking and you have the floor for 10 minutes, at around 9 minutes I'll hold the card. I think you heard me describe that before, and a red card at 10 minutes. And from there we'll move into questions. So welcome, and I think, do you have a preference about who goes first?
I'll start.
Okay, Pam, please.
So my name's Pam Glode DeRoche, and I am the Executive Director of the Mi'kmaq Native Friendship Center. We are located in Halifax. I could go on and on about stuff that the Friendship Center does and the amount of youth that we are engaged with. Today is actually very emotional for my family. This is about putting a face to suicide. This is about putting a name to suicide. On March the 2nd, my brother's son, my nephew, took his own life. And I'm going to let Matthew tell that story. And then I will make sure that we follow up, and I will definitely assist in answering questions. But this really is about Cody.
Okay, first and foremost, I'd like to thank everybody for having us here. The opportunity to speak on this issue has become dear and close to my heart. Our communities are in crisis. My name is Matthew Loud. I'm from Millbrook First Nation, Nova Scotia, and I'm here to talk to you about mental illness. Our son Cody started his battle with depression at the age of 13. He was a victim of bullying, and it wreaks havoc. Bullying wreaks havoc in our communities and the adolescents' lives. Cody started to self-harm. Little did we know, it was the beginning of a long, dark, and lonely road that would end in tragedy. We spoke openly about mental health and sought help immediately, while at the same time, pardon me, tending to our daughter Caitlin, who also started her own battle with depression and mental illness. For Cody, the course of action was medication, therapy, and martial arts. Martial arts gave him a whole new perspective. It gave him something to really look forward to. He did well in school, avoided the party scene, and spent most of his time in the gym teaching kids martial arts. His self-esteem was once again where it should be, or so we thought. He graduated from high school, he tried his hand at university and worked part-time. He seemed to have it all, although from time to time, he would tell us that he was sad and didn't understand why. We always encouraged and supported him, and he continued to work hard at the gym. He started on new medication and continued therapy. Cody dreamed of becoming a professional MMA fighter. And he also began to pursue a career as a firefighter. He graduated from fire school in April 2015, and little did we know that sometime prior to the end, he stopped taking his medication. When we did approach him, Cody explained they made him feel worse and that they weren't working. Someone close to us told us that he had stopped taking them. How do you make a 20-year-old firefighter/fighter take his medication? June 15th, he was hired full-time with the Truro Fire Service. He was the youngest firefighter ever hired, and the only First Nations firefighter ever hired. To say the least, we were proud would be an understatement. Cody should have been top of the world, and yes, on the outside, he appeared to be. He really had it all. A very hopeful future in MMA, a full-time career, a brand new car that he paid cash for, and a beautiful girlfriend he planned to marry. On the inside, Cody was dying a slow, painful death. He didn't want his employer to know. He was reluctant to seek out help right away. Finally, he went to the emergency room and was given a complete new medication and was told to follow up with his family doctor. Although he still didn't want to tell anything to his employer, he did seem to want to battle this illness head on. I truly believe that he wanted to live. However, he was exhausted from always pretending to be okay. He told me that he couldn't remember the last time that he felt happy. He thought it may be 11 years old. He couldn't sleep. The pills weren't working. The thoughts in his head grew darker and darker, and so did his writing in his journal. On March 2nd, our son Cody took his own life. Many wonder how such an accomplished young man could do this. He left behind myself and my wife of 22 years, his sister, 3 brothers, a niece, a loving girlfriend, and a large extended family, friends, and co-workers alike. This does not happen to families like mine. This does not happen to someone like Cody. And for that matter, it shouldn't happen to any family. Thank you. Or any individual. Mental illness isn't picky. It spares no one. It doesn't matter your race, your age, your upbringing, your education, your ambitions. It bites and digs its teeth deep in, and it does not release its prey. Suicide in First Nations communities is twice the national average, and one would think that with a number like that, help would be more readily available. Wrong. Cody went to the doctor. He was told to call. He was given a piece of paper with a name on it, and he was told to call to make an appointment with a psychologist. I seen Cody lose in the ring. I seen him lose in competition, but I'd never ever seen him defeated. When he came home that day, he was defeated. His shoulders were slumped. When he found out that it was a 2-month waiting period to get in to see somebody, he was defeated. I seen a difference in his demeanor then. 2 weeks into the 2-month wait, Cody took his life. His story was not the first and will not be the last, as long as this continues. Would it have changed Cody's outcome if he gotten in sooner? We don't know, and unfortunately we'll never know. But it may have bought him some time. For a lot of people suffering from mental illness who are deep in that pit of despair, making a phone call would be like climbing Mount Everest. If Cody had gone into the office with a bump on his head, high sugars, chest pain, or even a broken foot, help would have been immediate. Mental health issues need immediate action. Mental health is a word that people have to be comfortable with. Our son was not crazy. He did not have bad nerves. He was not loony. He suffered every day from mental illness. If it had been cancer, there would have been all kinds of help available. Mental health is lonely, and it cripples and kills its victims. We as a nation need to make mental health a household word. We need to put in place a system that saves lives, one that, if need be, holds that person's hand until they get the help that they need. We need people there to continue the care, even after help is given and received, whether that be through a simple visit or a phone call. A person in place that would offer a hug or words of encouragement or a listening ear. Sometimes so simple, but yet crucial to that person in the dark and lonely road to mental illness. I do know that in that moment when my son could no longer bear his inner pain, that he wasn't alone. God, Creator, reached down and took him in his arms and said, "I've got you. I'm taking you home." Well, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Glug. Pam, would you like to add anything?
Yes, I would actually. Of course I do. I actually, I just listened to a young girl say she was broken. And I take great offense to that. I take great offense that that young girl or any of our children feel like they are broken. As a people, we are not broken. The systems are broken, the policies are broken, and that's what needs to change. Our communities, whether you're on reserve or in an urban context, we are not broken. The systems are broken. They've been broken, they've been designed to fail us time and time again. I've seen it happen over and over and over again. I believe in my heart of hearts that there is a way forward. We talk about reconciliation. Everybody throws that word around now. It's where we need to go, and I actually believe it can be done. I believe it will take a long time to be done. I believe that it takes us doing things together, not having government do things to our communities, but with us, beside us, not in front of us, not behind us. I believe that those policies need to be joint and they need to be done together. I believe in my heart that our communities can get better. I believe that when society as a whole recognizes, and I heard Richard say it, we need to have understanding of why things are the way they are. Don't hold it against us that our families were put into residential schools, the 60 scoop, the pass, all of those things that created the Indian Act, they've all been created to assimilate and to eradicate the Indian problem. And those are real things. Those are very real. I believe that when I look at the mental health issues, and I am going to go to the Friendship Center now because we know when people come through our door, somebody may come in for employment, housing, education, addiction services. They're all intertwined. It's a social cocktail mix. I don't know what you want to call it. But mental health is usually 9 times out of 10, actually I'm going to say 99.9% of the time, there is mental health issues. And they all need to be treated together. People need to be treated with respect. It breaks my heart knowing that out of everything we do, we couldn't even help my own nephew. I've questioned what I do because of that. However, I also believe that Cody, for me, is the changing point even in my life. I believe that something good will come from Cody's passing. I believe that for me and the organization, the Friendship Center, our communities, we have to start doing things together, not in silos, not separately, not in Ottawa, but together. We talk about a national strategy. We talk about all these things. The reality is we have to start doing things together. And I don't mean at each other. I mean together. And we need to have that honest, truthful conversations. And humility has to play a role in that. I actually love Canada. I don't like some of the history that has happened to our people at all. What I do believe that moving forward, if we do things together, it can be very different. We try in our programs at the Friendship Center to actually take mainstream services and incorporate them into our communities. I think there's some validity in some of those systems if they can incorporate our systems, our needs, our wants. My brother and I have had the conversation. Is medication just the answer? Is cultural competencies the answer? I actually believe it's got to be done together. Is it just medication? No. But I've had conversations where it's medication. But I also believe, and I've seen my other nephew, Matthew's other son, who carries Cody's bundle, really take part in those monthly sweats for Cody, and those are healing for him. That is no different than going to the doctor for a Band-Aid, to be quite honest.
And speaking on that, Christopher was the last one to see Cody alive that night, and he bore a lot of weight, a lot of bearing on the outcome. He felt that he was responsible. Through the sweats, through the cultural aspect of it, it's relieved that weight off of his shoulders. I see a different young man now. He's a different person. He's more confident. He's more at peace. And I guess with the medication, I just wish that we would have had the opportunity. Our community is not big into our language or even into our old ways. So I wish that Cody would have had that experience of the sweat combined with medication, combined with the counseling. You can only guess at what may have been, but it would have been better than what he had because he had nothing.
And when we talk about policies, I always laugh because we have community members who go to doctors for different things, but it's always got to happen Monday to Friday between 9 and 5. The reality is when something big is going on in somebody's life, it's usually in the evenings. It's Christmas time, it's holidays, it's weekends. Those are huge crisis points, and I don't care if you're Aboriginal, non-Aboriginal, it doesn't. Those times are your worst times, but yet the doctors only want to work 9 to 5. And and I'm not holding that against. I believe that's policy. I believe that's how the systems are set up, and I think we need to re-examine those systems, those policies. That's where you're going to get change. That's where you're going to see a difference for our communities and Canada as a whole, to be honest. Suicide has no boundaries. It affects ours tremendously. And it is the loss of the language, the loss of the cultural pieces, the isolation, the not belonging, the not fitting in, the bullying, the racism that is experienced. All of those are key components in what our people are faced with. Many of our people coming from First Nations community into the urban context. It's isolation again. Halifax is fortunate enough to have, I think, a pretty strong friendship center, and we're able to provide over 28 programs and services for people, but there's still gaps. There's still the need, especially around mental health. Mental health is probably one of the largest gaps. We've done research on mental health, on justice systems and homelessness, and all of them come back to the need for additional resources around mental health. And it's not when I say traditional, I mean mainstream traditional services. It has to be incorporated. It has to respect, our teachings. And I believe that can be done. I actually really, truly believe that can be done. And I believe it is a way forward. I guess I have to believe that. I believe that there are really good people in this world that want to make a difference. And sometimes we just don't know how to do that. So.
Just one last thing I would like to say. I know our time's getting down there, but, Cody didn't come from a broken home. My wife and I have been married for 22 years. My parents have been married for over 40 years. My in-laws' parents have been married for over 30 years. Cody did not come from a home where there was alcohol abuse or drug abuse, or he didn't come from a home where there's physical abuse, sexual abuse. It just goes to show, pardon me, that regardless of your upbringing, that this poison can get you, and if the help's not there, unfortunately, it could be very tragic.
Okay, thank you both for that. We'll make the most of our time and just move right into the questions. It's the first 7-minute question is from Don Resnack, please.
Well, thank you for coming and sharing your story with us. I know it must be very difficult to share the story. I come from a community, the community of Thunder Bay in northwestern Ontario. I'm Ontario's only First Nation member of Parliament, and often times see institutional racism across government agencies, in police forces, in city councils and municipalities, all across institutions. And it's one of the examples I'll use is the Friendship Center in Thunder Bay was attempting to have a youth center built. Unfortunately, because it was a First Nation or Indian Friendship Center that was proposing the youth center, there was a lot of vocal opposition. And they never said that the reason they were vocal was because it was the Indian Friendship Center as the proponent, but many people felt that that was the reason there was vocal opposition. And then the city ultimately defeated or didn't approve the center. So a lost opportunity in my community to help out First Nation youth and indeed all youth in our community. It's now a chicken wing spot. Not that I don't like chicken wings, but I think better use of that facility could have been for the youth center. One of the, again, great things that we've heard, and I've heard from my colleagues, the work that Friendship Centers do across the country. And I'm not that familiar with your Friendship Center in Halifax, although myself and the chair have a friend from Eskasoni, Jaime Batiste. I'm not that familiar with his community or the communities on the East Coast. So can you let us know anything that your Friendship Center does specifically with youth or have been planning to do with youth in a preventative way to help youth avoid these situations or just help our youth generally?
Yeah. So our center actually has a youth group. And it is a drop-in center. We also do youth programming around employment and training as well with our youth. Mental health, we have a mental health project as well. Actually, it runs out the 30th of this month, our funding. Again, short-term funding. And we also usually apply for the Urban Partnership Youth Funds. Of course, there's lots of challenges around applying for short-term funding. There's usually gaps. Our Friendship Center does. We are large enough that I can carry some of that when those gaps happen. But the reality is that there's still not enough being done. There's still not that dedicated stream that allows us to do what needs to be done. I know most Friendship Centers have a youth component. Each Friendship Center is unique and different. But we are fortunate enough that we actually work within the HRM school board system as well, where we go into the schools and work with students in high school, junior high area. That leaves us challenges as well because we're spread throughout HRM, which is very large. Yes, sorry. And so it's large, and you're trying to get youth in. So there are challenges around that, but there's mental health. We do employment. We do, of course, addictions is a piece that we do not just for our youth but our community as a whole, and we also do food security with many of our youth. Oh yes, we do moose hunt too. Trying to get our kids back on the ground, on traditional grounds, and that is part of the food security that we do. So trying to bring that cultural piece back in.
2 minutes. So I've said this before at this committee that I view the problem, and it's my view alone, perhaps some of my committee members share my view, is that we have to have kind of a two-prong approach to this crisis in our communities. One, dealing with the immediate problem by funding programs like yours and other innovative programs to make sure that the youth have some hope and have the services that they need when they need it. The other is building up our communities, and that's the long-term solution, so we won't be facing this crisis over and over and over again, and committees years from now will be studying the same problem. And as I said, I wasn't that familiar with Eskasoni or some of the other communities on the East Coast. Can you give us a little bit of information regarding the state of the communities culturally and economically, and any positives that are happening in the communities?
So are you talking the First Nations community or the community that I provide programs and services for?
Well, both,
okay.
If you can.
So there are 13 First Nations within Nova Scotia. Many, and some of them have sub-communities. And you know what? Some of them are quite strong, and then some of them need some help. Some of them are strong financially, some of them are not. Cultural is very different. Eskasoni is very rich in their language. Then if you go to Millbrook, where we're from, it doesn't seem to be as strong. And it's not that it's not that community doesn't want it. It's colonization happened first where we are, and then it spread. So we've had the longest contact, so that affects our language, our cultural pieces. So it's always a challenge. Even for us in the urban context, you know, we have to pull from our the 13 First Nations many times to get that cultural components in the urban context, and we do it. We are seeing more and more as the transition, as the migration from the First Nations community into the urban context, you're seeing more and more traditional people coming into the urban context. So, you know, there's wide ranges. There's not one community that's the same. My community in HRM, and I do see our community, Indigenous community in Halifax, or HRM, as a community. It's not recognized as a community, but we're very much a community. We serviced, provided programs and service to 4,800 clients last year, and I suspect we are actually missing more than that. So,
thank you both for the question and answer. Next question is from Kathy McLeod, please.
Thank you. And when you started your testimony, you said you wanted to put a face to this issue, and I can tell you with all certainty that you've put a very powerful face to this issue, and certainly I think a heaviness in all our hearts with not only what you've gone through, but with the tasks that we have ahead in terms of trying to come up with something that we're going to recommend to the government in terms of some steps forward that are going to at least start to make a dent in what is a tragedy. So if, Mr. Glod, if you sort of said to us as your parliamentarians from all parties, what are the things that you think would be most important for us to consider having as part of where we ultimately go with this report?
I believe that we need frontline mental health workers in the communities. It's a given. That's no ifs, ands, buts, or maybes. We need to have those people there. We need to have them readily available so that when a crisis like Cody's at 1 a.m. in the morning, we have a mobile crisis team or somebody that can react to assist, to help. We don't have that. We have nothing. We have the healthcare system in our area Monday to Friday, 8 to 4. My daughter attempted to take her life 5 years ago. She's with a therapist. When Cody took his life, of course, she was really bad. We tried to get her in immediately, and she had a 2-week wait, even though knowing what she was going through. So, you know, I work for the federal government. I've worked for the federal government for 17 years, and if my supervisor came to me tomorrow and said, listen, we don't have money, but I need you to go do this, I would do it because I feel in my heart that it's important, or I wouldn't be doing the job that I'm doing. The healthcare workers, and I'm not dissing them because I know life is your home life is more important than your job. But at the same time, if that had been me as a therapist, I would have said, you know what, I'm booked for the next 2 weeks, but my lunch hours from 12 to 1, come see me. Or I would have made sure that there was a way to get the help to that person immediately. And I think by having not only just frontline healthcare workers, but frontline healthcare workers that understand the culture and understand the people, I think that is a must so that they can relate and they'll understand where you're coming from.
You indicated your son that was lost with Cody is, you know, having sweats and support culturally. And is that something that you were able to sort of make contact with after Cody, or was that something that, how did that piece? After
Cody had passed, actually he's a younger member of council, came to my house and he brought me down a smudge bowl and an eagle feather, and he reached out to us and said, listen, we're going to have a sweat tonight for the family. and that was the day of. We had another individual who, when he first came into the house, I'll be honest, I've been in law enforcement for quite a few years, and I was skeptical when he came to the house, the tattoos on his neck, and he was a rough-looking character, and he came in and he sat with my children, and the community, the kids from the community were there, and he drummed with them. He stayed there for 18 hours a day and drum and pray with the kids, and he got nothing. He didn't get paid. He didn't do anything other than put his time into those children. And I really believe without him, we would have had more suicides because of Cody's actions, because a lot of the kids in the community looked up to Cody because he was a role model, he was a firefighter, he was an MMA, he was a tough guy, and everybody loved him. He was a great kid and a great young man. I guess that's all I always call him, a kid, but he was a great young man, and that's the type of people you need. You need people that have their heart and soul into this stuff. And unfortunately, he was running a program there, and because he has a criminal record, and it's taken so long before he can get his pardon, he's been asked to step away from that. And you know what? This man has been God sent to our family. He's done so much for my oldest son. He's done so much for us. I can't say enough.
So it was him reaching out to you in that sort of cultural
And that's what
way?
started the sweats, and it was one of the elders in the community that put on the sweats, and we sweat every day for 2 weeks. And I'll be honest, it was not the first time, but it was the first time in many years that I went into a sweat, and I sweat regularly now. And to relieve the stress and to clear your mind, there's no better therapy, in my opinion, than that.
So can I just, I think it's really important, he talks about frontline workers. It's really important that those frontline workers are in the communities and they are part of the communities. I can't stress that enough. It's so important to have somebody there that takes part in activities in the community because they become part of the community. When I look at mainstream services, and I know that's probably not the nicest context to use, but that's how I see it, it's a cold system. It's a very cold system. It's not welcoming. You don't see yourself in that system as an Indigenous person. But when I look at even all the programs and services we have, because they're incorporated in under the Friendship Center, they become part of the communities. And that's what makes them successful. They are intertwined within the community. And I think that is the biggest piece here, is that it has to be in the community. There's no sense in us saying, okay, well, you've got to go to Halifax, or you got to go to Eskazoni, or you got to go here, or you got to go there, when you know they're not going to stay. It has to be in their own community. They have to see these services in their communities. And that's, I think, probably the biggest key, because then you can get that cultural piece that gets intertwined. And it's very key that that gets put in there. It has to be put in there.
Thank you.
Thanks. We're out of time there. The next question is from Alistair, please.
Pamela and Matthew, thank you very much, as Kathy said, for coming here today and putting a human face on a very difficult issue. I think sometimes when we're discussing policies and general statistics, we forget the human factor. So thank you for coming and sharing that story with me today. Pamela, I think I'll start with you. You may have heard, I spoke to our previous witnesses, and I said that, part of my riding lies on the traditional territories of the Cowichan people. And Cowichan Tribes is the largest First Nations band in British Columbia. So I've been privileged to have a very deep relationship with them over the last few years. But, I've lived there for 27 years, and much of my life, my youth growing up, it was like the two solitudes. I spent my entire childhood and teenage years going through without ever finding out or learning about people I saw every day, my neighbors. And it wasn't until we hosted the North American Indigenous Games in 2008 that acted as a real catalyst for the community. And ever since then, we've been trying to build bridges. We've had the Walk of Nations. There's not an event that doesn't go by which doesn't acknowledge the territory that they stand on. And there's a lot of work that has to be done still, but I see the beginnings of something really positive. And we have a friendship center in the Cowichan Valley, and one of its main goals is to provide the cultural bridge between the Aboriginal and non-Aboriginal population. I'm just wondering if you could tell the committee a little bit about some of the programs that exist in your area, or something that can be used as a template as well in that regard.
So you're asking me which or the types of programs that our Friendship Center runs?
Yeah, or something that sort of bridges the two communities together, because often we have the two populations living in isolation from each other, not getting to learn about each other. And I think that's, like, I was really struck about your comment that, you know, we have to do this together. So in that context, please.
And that is probably one of the biggest roles that I actually see a Friendship Center doing, is bridging that gap. Part of my mandate as ED is to ensure that I am out there and educating people on what a Friendship Center does, what our communities are doing. But it's intertwined in all of our programs and services. We actually have an open door, Friendship Centers have an open door policy. And if anybody comes through my door, I provide programs and service to them. Some of our programs, nobody ever wanted to touch. Our methadone program, our needle exchange program, it was a need for the community. And not just our community, our Indigenous community. There was a huge need in the non-Indigenous community. So we worked with the non-Indigenous community to bring those programs in under the umbrella at the Friendship Center. So it's part of us being really good neighbors, and part of us having the ability to go send our staff to schools, to governments, we get so many calls for an elder to go and do an opening. Well, we know that, and that is now part of, I have a programs coordinator who, that's part of her job. So it's building those pieces into our Friendship Center. It's building them into our programs, and a lot of times we do it on our own dime because it's that important to us. Most of our programs don't cover they just don't cover expenses around that. So it's on our dime. I do stuff on the weekends all the time. I don't get paid for that stuff, but it's important enough to me and my community as we move forward to ensure that we're good neighbors, and we are good neighbors. I want people coming in through how many times do I hear people who walk by my door, oh, you guys are the building with the paintings on it. And if you ever see a picture of our Friendship Center, that's what you will see, I can guarantee you. But it's more than that. It is about building long-term relationships. And it's about building partnerships, and it's about building a relationship that you want to be long-term, so that there's long-term benefits for everybody. And our friendship, we can't do everything. So it's how do we position ourselves to bring in programs that I may not have the expertise for, but yet you bring them in under the umbrella of the Friendship Center. We provide free rent to several organizations. That's how important I believe that those organizations are for our community. So it's about bringing people into our community while we're still going out. We provide cultural training. I think our elder Debbie, she, I'm going to say over 500 HR and police officers. She's gone and done cultural training. We didn't charge for any of that. It's about building relationships. Now we even have a lot of the Halifax police will come by and stop in for a tea and a coffee now. We never had that before. So it starts to break down those barriers, and those are so important to do. It allows us to make a really quick call if, perfect example. I got a call last week, a young man that I've known for a long time, been part of our center since I can remember, was picked up by the police, and we get a call first and said, hey, what do we do with this situation? And they actually came to us first before they actually hauled him off and put him in a cell. We were able to bridge that, and they were comfortable enough to come to us. And that is really key, because the issue was more of a cultural issue than an actual criminal issue. And we were able to walk through that, and that's a big difference. I would never have seen that before, probably.
And when in the process of building those bridges between the Aboriginal and non-Aboriginal community, have you seen any results, like any feedback from the Aboriginal youth that you help? Do they see that as helping overall? Is like the trust that's being built between those communities and so on? Is that something that can be used as but one of many building blocks to getting to where we eventually want to be?
Yeah. So we did a project. Oh, are we out?
I'm so sorry.
sorry.
Maybe we can slide it into the answer to another
answer
question.
that on the side.
Yeah. Okay, the next question is from Michael McLeod, please.
I want to say thank you for sharing your story. It's very tough for us to listen to such a something so tragic to happen to you directly, and I think all of us, especially as Aboriginal people, we can all relate to having lost someone, family or friend, and we visited a number of communities, and the issue is widespread. And just when I started thinking we had the pieces of the puzzle lined up, your story made that all crash to the sidelines, because there is so many different things that you could point to, and sometimes you can't point to any of them. I heard, for most of my life that we got issues as a result of residential school. We had a residential school in my community, and it destroyed a lot of people. And as I travel around this last go around, I'm hearing that one of the most important things is to be able to restore pride in our people, to be proud of who they are, and especially the youth. And that's going to be a very difficult challenge. I watched, my daughter struggle with the loss of her friend, and we encouraged her to speak about it and spoke in classes, and other schools heard about it, so they got them to travel. But the result of that was her phones were just ringing day and night because of the people that were in situations where they had no place to turn. So they're turning to a young girl who was only, 16 years old. I finally had to ask her not to do it anymore because she was awake day and night. She was getting depressed over the issue. But it points to the lack of resources. And I really not one to want to reinvent the wheel. And I'm also one that really supports friendship centers. I founded the one in my community. I wrote the Constitution bylaw. I chased it for years until we got the money. I helped other communities develop them, only to watch them get cut, slashed to the point where they could barely function, and everything is mostly done on whoever's got the time, whoever wants to donate their time, whatever handouts they can get for the food kitchen or whatever. But there's an opportunity there to make it something that communities could use. And the program hasn't expanded in the last few years. We have the Aboriginal Head Start, which really caters to the younger population, the young mothers, the families that have young children that are challenged. A lot of the families we know are FAE or impacted by alcohol or learning disabilities or things of that nature. And they work with them and they help them and they teach them, including the Aboriginal the sports circles. There's so many things that are out there, but some of them are almost invisible. Aboriginal Head Start is plopped so far down in public health, you don't even know it exists. I don't think the deputy knows where it's at because they never raise it. They never talk about it. I ask about it. There's no real plan for it. So there's so many things that exist that we could use. And I think I heard it the best in our last article, or the Northern Tour, about having to have facilities that can act as crisis centers, family centers, cultural centers. I think friendship centers could maybe fill that void. Maybe if you could talk about it, and maybe talk about the resources that are needed.
I can tell you right now, I can speak from my perspective. There's 119 friendship centers. I truly, truly believe every urban setting should have a friendship center. I truly believe that. I would not be where I am today without my friendship center. And the resources that are needed. Perfect example is the small amount of dollars that I do get, I do leverage. However, when I leverage those dollars, I'm spending so much time writing 38 and 40 other reports, constantly writing proposals, which is the story of my life, having the resources that I don't have to worry about the day-to-day core operations is huge. We have very little money, but it needs to be long-term funding. It can't be a short-term funding solution. It needs to be a longer-term funding solution. And whether that's youth programming, but I actually believe youth should actually be part of our core funding, actually. There should be no gaps in youth funding. There just shouldn't be. Youth funding should be core funded through and through and through again. They are our future.
Thank you for that. And I honestly believe every Aboriginal community should have a Friendship Centre. And it should be resourced to deal with the many issues that they need to tackle and deal with. We can't ignore that the issue of FA is widespread in our communities. The jails are full of people that really, they need help. They also needed help and assistance, and suicide, and Friendship Centres can deliver education programs, cultural programs, sports programs, so many things. I watched our Friendship Centre as the only facility open during the Christmas holidays on Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, in the whole community. They stayed awake all night trying to help people that needed rides, people that were homeless, people that were hungry. Every other government facility shut down. In fact, every other government facility is run by non-community members, so they all leave. They go home for holidays. So I really believe what you said about having it, the solution by our own people. Our social ills has to be cured by our own people. But we need the resources to deal with it. I didn't ask a question.
I know you didn't.
Oh.
I got to make a statement.
I had lots to say about that, too.
I'm going to address the things that you weren't allowed to say, didn't have time to say at the end, but I'm just going to go. We have time for one more question, and this one is from Arnold Beerson, please. And it's a 5-minute question, Arnold.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for being here. It's a profound story that you give it, and it definitely gives me some heartache for sure. I want to congratulate the Friendship Centres on their success that they do have, and I think the big part of that success is that most every one of them has somebody like you that champions them, and that we've heard over and over again that it's community engagement in communities that they bring forward the ideas. Those are the successful programs. And so I guess my question would be is, we've heard over and over again the amount of work that's done through Friendship Centres is they punch way above their weight because of individuals who are personally invested in them. If we were to try to facilitate a Friendship Centre in every community, or in every urban center for sure, how do we go about ensuring that there is a group of people or an individual such as yourself to be the backstop on that, right? Because just like every other program, typically the intent is amazing, but if we don't have the right people to backstop it, it never happens, or just the money gets spent and nothing happens. So I guess, would you have a little bit of an insight on how we would go about, if we're going to go out down this avenue of Friendship Centres as the solution, how do we find the right people to backstop them?
So first and foremost, it has to be for community by community. Mm-hmm. So it has to be wanted and needed in that community. There's probably not a community that I've been to that has not said, I wish we had a Friendship Centre. I wish we had something like what you had. The model is there. It's a great model. It works. And there are ways to incorporate that. But of course, having good people is always a challenge, because a lot of the times when I look around, a lot of people who are sitting on that side of the table actually were our staff members and got poached. So it is always a challenge, but it's so fulfilling to see that Friendship Centers have that ability to build the capacity in communities. And you may have to start with satellite offices that are hosted by main Friendship Centers, but there are ways to do those things. So I think you have a really good model. It's working with the communities and making sure that it addresses their needs.
One of the great avenues of Friendship Centers is that their ability to attract everybody. I think that it's tied up right in the name, Friendship Center. One of the things that I always watch when the government gets involved is that there's a whole list of criteria that you have to meet in order to be employed by a company that the government's funding, essentially. Could you just maybe give us a little bit of profiles of some of the people that work with you? Do they have university degrees,
Yep.
these kinds of things? Or is it, yeah, I think you get what I'm trying to go there.
So I've been with our Friendship Center for 24 years.
Yeah.
And prior to that, I went to many of the programs and services. And it's amazing to see the difference in the people that come through our door now for employment. Even summer students, which is a huge piece for us, they are coming now with degrees, and they want to work in their communities. We have 85 employees at our Friendship Center, so we're a pretty good size, and most of them are coming in with degrees now. However, I always look for somebody who we can build that capacity with. It's really key that we remember that we are there to move our communities forward and to take those members that may not have that degree but build that capacity. It's always about building capacity, and it's always about community. It has to always be about community, not individuals, about the community. So building capacity benefits us long term. Summer students sometimes is one of my biggest challenges. I won't lie. Sometimes they are the biggest challenges, but it's the most rewarding when you see them move through the system. And then they're hired with us, and then they move on to these great jobs.
Thanks. Thanks for the question and for the answer. That does bring us to the end. So, yeah, good spot to end there. Thank you both so much for your time and for the travel today. This is such important input into this study, and I'll let you know that we expect the study to be concluded. We'll have a report sometime in the new year, maybe February or early March, and that'll be become a public document at some point once it's tabled and accepted. You heard me mention in the first half of the meeting about the online portal. Yes. So I'm going to make sure that Michelle, that we get that address to you, and I again would want you to share that as broadly as you are able to get folks to share whatever story they can.
Certainly will do that.
Okay. Thank you so much for your time again, and we'll see you in Halifax.
Thank you.
May I have a motion for adjournment, please? We'll get to that. Moved.
Thank you.